Hello, everyone. Tom here from the Smart Stack team, coming in today to show you a little bit about n8n. That's how you say it, at least according to a couple of videos I watched. I thought maybe Nation or n8n or something like that. No, n8n. It's a platform we're looking at. It's a workflow kind of orchestration tool, something like a Zapier. I'm going to walk through what I think really what their focus is, what they're really trying to go after with this product, how to actually build a pretty basic flow, the steps that go along with that, and how you can configure and connect to different tools that you might be using. Really, along the way, I'll be highlighting what I really like about it, the pros, but maybe also the cons. I am a little bit more used to something like Zapier, so what I feel is lacking compared to a platform like that. And then just wrapping up, talking about really where I think this platform is going and where a lot of the power is. So this is just very much so that intro. If you are interested in more advanced thing as it relates to this platform, specifically AI and their agent, which they are investing a lot of money in, we are going to be covering that in a future video very shortly. So please hit that subscribe button so you can be notified. We'll see you on the other side. Okay, let's get started here. So I'm actually on the n8n homepage here. And first of all, I think you tell a lot about a platform when it relates to the homepage. A couple of things I want to highlight. Basically, the long and the short of it is that it really is focused on developers. And I think that's a good thing. If you're a developer, of course, not a good or a bad thing. But yeah, you can see it here, right? Obviously, in the first couple things here, they're talking about DevOps and SecOps and IT ops and these things, which is great. And yeah, as you scroll through, I won't go through each of these different things, but one thing that really emphasizes here, obviously, is in the environments, right? So being able to use Git, and again, if you don't know, I don't even know Git that well, but the idea is that you can have multiple environments, right? So you can have a little section of n8n through Git that is for testing things out, like your dev environment, and then you have a separate environment, production, which is actually running the thing. So it really is built for a bit more enterprise, a bit more developers in mind, which is interesting. And I think, on the developer side of things, you don't have to look any further than right here. They actually offer a self-hosting. And again, without going into all the technical details here, basically means you can run n8n on your computer. So right now it's running in the cloud doing things, but you could just run it on your laptop, and they offer that for free. And I think their bet is basically, hey, we're going to build up a big enough community that we'll give that away for free. They can run it on their laptops. And so then the people who are paying for it, people like me who are running it either in the cloud or the enterprise edition, are going to get so much value from that community. So big community focus here. But let's get into the actual platform itself. So this is, I've already signed up for n8n, and this is what you get when you first log in. Now, if you haven't signed up yet, there is a 14-day free trial. There's a link below. You can use that, and it gets you going. Right off the bat, you can see it, again, emphasizes that community. You can join the forum or just get right into the workspace. That's what we're going to do here. I've been tinkering around, trying a couple different things here, but basically what we're going to do is just start a brand new workflow. So if you are using or maybe used to, let's say, something like a Zapier, that's honestly what I'm used to. These are going to be like your Zaps. So they just call it, instead of Zaps, workflows. And it's just a simple list of all your different workflows. So you can come in here, create a brand new workflow. These different things here, project is, I guess, is like a folder. Credentials is a way to log in and authenticate things, right? So I've actually done that with OpenAI and Zoho. Those are two tools that I use frequently. And you could do that outside the context of a workflow if you wanted, if you just wanted to connect to different accounts. But most of the time you just do it right within the workflow. That's the easiest, and I'll show you how to do that. So this opens this up here. And yeah, it's really, a little bit different, again, maybe from like a Zapier type thing, which maybe a lot of people are used to, and that it is a little bit more of a blank canvas, right? I think that Zapier does try to kind of do things quite linearly, top to bottom. Here, it's just kind of a free-for-all. And I think that, again, speaks to maybe its developer focus a little bit more. But yeah, we're going to get right into it. Let's just start right away. The only other thing that I'll quickly mention here, you're going to get sick of me saying this, is that there are templates. Again, so this community, this is probably the big bet that they're making, is that if we get enough people in the community, they're going to make great templates like this that I can take. I don't know, a sales one. I want to do an AI chatbot analyst, whatever. And I could say this, and I could import it directly right into my workspace. And I won't do it all here, but basically that'll show up right within. You can see this area looks exactly like where I just was. Or you could even get into a JSON object. So it's all kind of configurable. Again, won't go into the nitty gritty of that one there, but you could import it. So again, that focus on community. But let's get into it. Let's actually build a flow. Let's actually do something that's useful. And so the first thing we're going to do is add a step here. When I pull this up, a couple things jump out to me right away. On a schedule, on a webhook call, on an app event, those are kind of standard. The manual one I haven't really experienced before when I have used a Zapier or a Zoho Flow or things like that. So I like that one. I also really like this one, executed by another workflow, right? So the idea is I've made another workflow somewhere and I could daisy chain this, right? So if something happens over there, it calls this one, then maybe calls the next one, and you can kind of link these together if you wanted to separate the interests a little bit. And so for this one, I'm just going to do on form submission. And this one's kind of cool, I guess, again, because this shows a little bit of a unique capability that you can actually create very dynamically on the fly these n8n forms, right? So if you just want to have a form that the whole purpose was to embed into a workflow, it allows you to do this. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, this is in my form submission. I don't need to authenticate because I'm not connecting to anything. I'm just going to call this the contact us form. Form description doesn't matter. It's not mandatory. Let's add another form element. Let's ask for last name again. And I'm going to ask for email. Email, great. And so that's going to be my form. And for each of these steps, you always have to test it. So the interesting thing here is a little bit, again, different than something like a Zapier. Something I don't like as much is that it doesn't have pre-baked test data, at least from what I could see. You always have to test it. So you always have to trigger it, which can be a little bit annoying, right? So if I had a different form, or as you can see, even this form here, I have to fill out the form actually, right? So I'd say, tom.test@gmail.com, whatever. That's not my real email. But you have to do this, right? In other things like Zapier, this is preloaded. It's like, hey, for a standard form, a standard whatever, this is a standard set of data, so I don't have to do this step when I'm actually configuring something. But it is what it is. We submit that, and I'll close this. And you can see there, that was my input, a nice test. Here was the dynamics of it, and then here is the output. So that's great. The other thing that's maybe a bit frustrating is that, I'm done with this step. And what I would want is like a nice big done button somewhere, but it almost feels like something's missing, but it's not. It's done. There's this back to canvas here, which is kind of hidden. So yeah, I would like to get a little bit of acknowledgement of saying, hey, this is done. This is good. You can move on to the next step. Obviously you don't see that here. Again, that's probably a bit more of a focus on the back end than the front end experience, but that's good. That's good to go. So yeah, form submission comes in, and then really we can just basically choose what our reaction is. So what I'm going to do, you heard me talk about Zoho CRM. That's a CRM that I use. So I'm just going to use it quickly here. And I'm just going to create a lead, right? So the idea is someone completes that form for me, and I'm going to create a lead. So that's already in there. I've already authenticated. The resource is lead. I'm going to create that lead, and I can put in some things here. So I'll just call this test company. But really where the valuable thing is, you want these to be dynamic. I put in test company because I didn't have the option to. But last name, I can click and drag that in. Great. And as you see here, you can say, hey, anything within those brackets is JavaScript, right? So again, the developer focus, very valuable if you are that developer who knows how to do these things. Maybe a little bit confusing if not, but you can come in here. And again, it does help you with things. So instead of having to do this in some, kind of tricky to manage step in something like a Zapier, you can do it right within the context, and you can say, hey, I'd love to put these all to uppercase, right? So now test with a lowercase became this, test with an uppercase. Sure, great. And then, I can come in here and let's try to find first name. Great. First name. I won't change anything there. And then email. Again, I can click and drag. Again, won't make any changes. One kind of weird thing here too is that it's really hard, or it's not super clear to find the custom. Like these are just your standard fields you get from Zoho. But like Salesforce, HubSpot, Pipedrive, whatever you might use, you can make your own fields. And to do it, you have to actually click this custom fields button. It's kind of hidden. It's not kind of called out there. So I didn't love that, but I can come in here and then it's starting to look, right? It's starting to find all those. So you can see kind of how the architecture works. And then we have a bunch of custom fields, and I won't bring those in, but that's kind of how they do the custom fields. Again, not super great, but okay. So that's all in. All we're really bringing is first name, last name, this test company thing here, sure. And we're going to test the step. And great, it's in there. That looks good. We created it at this time. And if I were to go into my CRM right now, I'm sure I would see that. So that's all great and kind of done the basics, right? I've made a very basic workflow here. A couple things that I would want to call out as kind of interesting add-ons, some things that they really highlight. Number one is multiple triggers. So this is actually a cool one. I've heard this, this is a frustration of mine with a Zapier or different things like that. Again, Zapier likes a line that do this and this and this and this. This is a lot better for branches, right? So different nodes, different things. And so, yeah, we can come in here and choose to add another trigger, right? This is something that's unique. Let's just choose a simple one. So yeah, I could test this workflow, do it manually, and test the workflow. Now that's going to cause an issue, of course, because it doesn't have the context from the form submission. But the point is, more than anything, hey, it can do that. It can have those multiple submissions. The other kind of interesting thing I would say about this is it is kind of cool. You can actually turn on and off these notes. So if you say, oh, I've configured this, but maybe just for testing or different things, I could just flick that off. Again, in other tools, you might have to just dissociate it or delete it and then re-add it. I can just deactivate it and you can see it just kind of skips right through there, which is nice. And then the other thing I really like about it is, let's maybe try it here, is I can add in a nice if statement here, right? So let's just try this. Execute previous nodes. Let's put in Tom Tester again, tom.test@gmail.com. Great. So again, doesn't really close. It's a little bit strange, but okay. So now we have that information. And let's just say the condition is email contains, let's just say, we want to do, this is an example they give, which I'm good with. Email, right, dynamically contains Gmail, right? So maybe we want to treat Gmail type emails differently. Maybe you don't want to bring them in because they're primarily junk. I don't know. But we can test this step, and you can see that it put it to the true branch, and then there's a false branch there. So that's done. Again, I'd love to have a little button that says done, but now I switch back. I have that here, and actually, I'm going to say delete that, and I'm actually just going to attach the false branch to that, right? So if it does have that Gmail, don't do anything. If it doesn't have Gmail, so that logic fails, it can go here. This is a little bit nicer, in my opinion, again, than maybe some of the other filters. Those are tougher in places like Zapier. So, yeah, it's a bit nicer to have that visual and be able to click and drag. I think in Zapier, you have to do a filter, which is a little bit hard to configure. So I really do like this branching behavior, being able to do that. I think it's really nice. So I think that wraps up more or less, I guess, the actual demo, the actual tutorial. I think just to wrap up, I'll just kind of briefly rattle off my pros and cons, right? So the pros, we've talked about it along the way. Great for developers, quickly editing and making those maybe JavaScript changes right within the context. Makes it super simple. This type of node is nice. And the multiple triggers, what they talk about, those are really good. The other thing that I'll very quickly mention is they do seem to be investing a lot in AI. We didn't talk about it in this video. I have dug into it. We are doing it in a future video. So if you are interested in seeing that, please subscribe and we'll get that out. But that's a really nice thing here. Another kind of cool thing with it, again, with the focus of maybe publishing this to somewhere else, is you can just comment. I think this is kind of really cool. Maybe it's another team member, or again, maybe a community member. You can come in here and just make notes, right? To say, hey, this is what I'd like people to know when they're actually looking at this particular workflow, right? So you can actually make these notes. And then, yeah, I guess on the other side, what's not so great, Again, we've talked about it along the way, the kind of weird interface where I can't close the window. Even if I look at some things like this, my thing here, it talks about things like resource. I don't think that is something terminology people use every day. So you kind of be ready to kind of decipher and translate from developer to English, so to speak. Even operation, I guess operation people might get a little bit more, but this is really throughout I see is that, hey, a little bit strange terminology or terminology that you have to decode a little bit. And I guess the only other kind of maybe quirk that it has or thing that I'm not as impressed with is basically just not as many integrations as maybe something like Zapier, right? So, when I was originally preparing for this, I wanted to try a Zoho Forms. That's again, we use a lot of Zoho stuff. So I typed in Zoho Forms, nothing. And yeah, if I just try form, there are form things, of course, for all these more popular ones. But Zoho Forms is, less popular, and clearly it's not here. So that more or less wraps things up, I guess, in terms of what I wanted to show you today. So hopefully this gives you a good idea of what n8n is. It was new to me. Really how you can get in there and really make a basic workflow very quickly, whether you do it from scratch or from the community, which of course what they really focus on, and really the pros and cons. What's really great about this platform and where you might want to use it and where is it not so great. So again, I hope this was useful. If you are considering signing up, we just ask that maybe use the link in the description below. It helps support the channel. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.